Pokemon Colosseum. It's the first Pokemon game on console to follow a similar structure to the handheld games, where you're exploring a world and collecting Pokemon along your quest. Pokemon Colosseum, however, saw a lot of influence from other grandiose JRPGs on console for the time, such as Final Fantasy VII and Persona 2. The result was a Pokemon game that focused a lot more on its story rather than the standard Pokemon gameplay elements that you would see on your traditional handheld Pokemon game for the time. The game was developed by Genius Sonority, which was founded by Manabu Yamana. For those of you unfamiliar with him, he was on the team responsible for making a couple of the early entries in the Dragon Quest library. Genius Sonority was joined in their efforts by Creatures Inc., previously known as Ape Inc. Creatures Inc. is best known for their work on the Pokemon Stadium games, as they made all the models for those games, but they also developed the mother games. This ragtag duo would go on to create their first game, Pokemon Colosseum, which would go on to sell over 1 million copies. It would be so successful that they would go on to create a sequel in Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, and then even make Pokemon Battle Revolution, as well as several other games that I cannot pronounce. In Pokemon Colosseum, gameplay has changed a lot from the handheld games. Where the main games are built around collecting all the gym badges and becoming the champion, Pokemon Colosseum throws these ideas away entirely. Instead of defeating the Elite Four to become the champion, this game is built around investigating and defeating the evil organization that is set up in the Ore region, called Cypher, and hopefully rescuing as many Shadow Pokemon along the way as you can. I will cover Shadow Pokemon more in detail in a bit here. Pokemon Colosseum also changes a lot of core mechanics of the Pokemon games, aside from that. For starters, there are no more single battles as everything is a double battle now. This allowed to add trainers with more complicated strategies, such as Protect Earthquake variants, Rain Dance teams, and even Skill Swap teams. Unlike other regions of Pokemon, the Ore region is a vast desert that has no wild Pokemon. The only way to get new Pokemon in this game is to encounter Shadow Pokemon along your journey. As stated prior, this game is centered around the idea of Shadow Pokemon. Shadow Pokemon are Pokemon that have had their hearts closed through artificial means by Team Cypher. However, they can be returned to normal if you use the Pokemon in battles, leave them at the daycare, or use certain items on them. As you do this, Pokemon's Shadow meters will go down and recover old moves, as well as show you their nature. While these Pokemon can be used in battle as Shadow Pokemon, there are a few problems with this. The first one is their move pool. All Shadow Pokemon start off only knowing Shadow Rush, which serves a purpose as just an over-glorified struggle as it is typeless and does recoil damage. The lower their Shadow meter goes, the more moves that they will recover. However, they still cannot have any of those moves replaced until they are purified, even with TMs. The second problem is that Shadow Pokemon are locked into the level that they are when you catch them. If you catch a Shadow Pokemon at level 30, it cannot gain any EXP until it is purified. Once the Shadow Pokemon becomes purified, it gains roughly 80% of the EXP it should have gained while it was a Shadow Pokemon. However, you still don't get any of that until it has been purified and has forgotten Shadow Rush. Another problem is that whenever a Pokemon uses Shadow Rush, there is a chance that it will go into Hyper Mode. While in Hyper Mode, Shadow Rush has a near 100% crit rate, but if you do not use Shadow Rush, the Pokemon has a very high chance of disobeying you. There's actually a new mechanic called Call. However, the only reason this mechanic is here is to call Pokemon when they're in Hyper Mode and it will return them to normal. The reason Call was added for this game is because there are no wild Pokemon in this game to run from. When a Pokemon's Shadow meter is empty, you can purify a Pokemon, which makes it recover its fourth move and forget Shadow Rush, and it gains the EXP as stated before. This mechanic is meant to help keep your Pokemon leveling up so that they do not get underleveled, as a lot of Shadow Pokemon would be locked at too low of a level to even be usable in this game. This raises the question, is it possible to beat Pokemon Colosseum with only Shadow Pokemon? For this challenge, we will only use Shadow Pokemon, meaning everything negative stated above will always apply to all our Pokemon. Once we get Shadow Makuhita after the introduction, we will deposit both our starters into the PC and play the rest of the game with only Shadow Pokemon we get along the way. This challenge may sound rather simple, but the further into the game you get, the bigger the discrepancies level-wise become between normal Pokemon and Shadow Pokemon, so by the end of the game, we are probably going to be very underleveled. Other rules include no healing items in battle, however I do allow Pokeballs in battle, and I am allowing held items for battles. Also, I am banning the use of the Infinite Master Ball glitch, as it kinda just ruins the run anyways when you use a glitch like that. Anyway, I haven't got all day. I'm the Towel Guy, and this is Can You Beat Pokemon Colosseum with only Shadow Pokemon. The challenge begins with us naming the main character, who is going to be named My Guy. After naming him, we see a building with a bunch of people that look like that one character from The Empire Strikes Back, then the building explodes and we see My Guy take an item from them. After that, we make our getaway while some guy who looks like a boss we'll run into again looks at us very angry about the whole ordeal. We ride off into the sunset on a bike that is missing its front tire, so I'm forced to believe this bike is popping a wheelie the entire time we are riding on it. We arrive at a literal train in the desert and see two goons with a bag and figure that they're going to Fennec City, so we decide to follow them. When we arrive at Fennec City, we beat them in a battle real quick and then we open the bag and find a girl named Rui. Rui has the ability to detect shadow Pokemon, which we don't really get yet, but who knows, we just blew up ability, who are we to judge? Anyways, let's go visit the mayor. On our way to the mayor, we get introduced to a character that has a rather detailed model. He says we'll see each other again, but for now, I'm forced to believe that he's just a random nobody and will carry on with the task at hand. The mayor tells us to pretty much go away as there aren't any actual problems, and we run into those guys from the building we destroyed. They tell us that the thing that we stole is a snag machine which lets you steal shadow Pokemon. However, they really don't do anything about it as we make quick work of them. We go back to the mayor's house and meet the coolest Pokemon character ever, Mirror B. Mirror B tells us he is headed to Pyrite and tells his lackeys to deal with us. His lackeys send out a Makuhita and Rui identifies it as a shadow Pokemon. We steal the shadow Makuhita, which has a 100% catch rate, and make quick work of the lackeys. Now we have the Makuhita, the challenge can truly begin. We go and deposit our starters so that our team is just Makuhita. Now we are faced with one of the biggest decisions of every Pokemon trainer's life. Which starter do we get? In this game, we get a choice between the middle stages of the Johto starters. We can choose either Crocona, Bayleaf, or Quilava. I decided on Crocona as he has Surf and the Mystic Water, which will be important later in this run. Immediately when trying to snag these Pokemon, I run into a problem. I have just Shadow Makuhita, and the opponent has multiple Pokemon. Ultimately, this just becomes his Pokemon ganging up on Makuhita and laying the smackdown before I can do anything, as he just gets 2 attack for every 1 attack I do. I end up deciding that the only way I'm going to win this fight is if I can snag Crocona turn 1. However, it's kind of funny. I don't think the Pokemon developers ever planned on some of these Pokemon being catchable that were catchable in this game, so they gave them really weird catch rates like Crocona. It has a catch rate of 45, even though it's never really in a Pokemon game prior to this, for catching purposes. Eventually, we get the run where we snag Crocona turn 1, and he gets immediately added to our party. From there, we just have Crocona and Makuhita lay the smackdown on him, and with that, we end up beating him. After defeating him, we make our way to Pyrite Town. In Pyrite Town, we find Duel Square, which is swarming with shadow Pokemon for us to snag. We end up snagging several Pokemon here, including Noctowl, Flaffy, Skiploom, Quagsire, Misdrevious, and Slugma, all with relative ease. After this, we go face another trainer who has a Shadow Furret, which we snag easily. Aside from that, none of these battles are any problems for us to deal with right now, especially when we keep adding these Shadow Pokemon to our party, allowing us to have more Pokemon. After that, we decide to go visit the Colosseum, as word on the street is whoever can win the Colosseum wins a Shadow Pokemon. After winning the Colosseum, we get taken by a Cypher Goon to their headquarters, where we immediately get recognized and denied a Shadow Pokemon. The Goon challenges us, and we snag his Yanma and deal with him relatively easily. Now we have to make it to the top of the base. None of these trainers have shadow Pokemon, so they're pretty easy. Just there are several times where we have to run to the bottom of the whole base just to heal again. After a while, we make our way to the top and run into 2 more goons. Both of these goons are pretty easy to defeat, and we end up snagging both a Remoraid and a Mantine from them. After getting these Pokemon, Mirror B appears on a screen to do some more sick dance moves and then proceeds to trash talk us for a bit. We make our way deeper into the hideout and end up snagging Quillfish, Swablu, Dunsparce, but we fail to snag a Meditite. I'll take this opportunity to say I will not be snagging every Shadow Pokemon in this run. However, I will mention if one is important and I think it needs to be snagged to beat the game. We make our way to the end of the hideout and we find the fabulous man himself, Mirror B. He challenges us to a battle. The fight with Mirror B is the easiest boss in this entire run. His team is 4 Ludicolo's and a Shadow Sudowoodo. He tries to keep Rain Dance up to boost his Ludicolo's, but Noctowl and Misdreavus deal with most of his team relatively easily. In the end, we snag Shadow Sudowoodo without any problems. After beating Mirror B, we rescue a Plusle and he gets added to our party. Unfortunately, we just put him in the PC never to see the light of day ever again. We decide to visit Agate Village to see Rui's grandpa, Egan, and when we get there we hear about an emergency going on in the ancient forest. We watch Egan fight a Cypher Goon, and his Pikachu gets taken down relatively quickly by a Shadow Hitmontop. Then we immediately challenge him. This battle is relatively easy, just save before you do it. We snag Hitmontop easily enough, then we get told how to purify a Pokemon at the ancient forest, as if that's something we will ever do in this run. We end up hearing some stuff about Mount Battle having some shenanigans going on, and we decide to check it out. But before that, I'm going to cover the Agate exploit. Normally, a Shadow Meter only goes down from the method stated at the beginning of this video. However, there is a ledge in Agate Village that if you walk into, you can walk into it indefinitely and your Shadow Meters will keep going down. So what I do is I would have my character walk into it and then just tape the control stick down and come back in the morning or after even a few hours, and generally the Shadow Pokemon would have all their moves back. With that done, we make our way to Mount Battle to see what all the hubbub's about. Mount Battle is a 100 trainer challenge, split into 10 areas with 10 trainers each. Defeating all of the trainers in one area will earn you coupons which you can use to buy special items. There's also a pretty cool reward for defeating all 100 trainers, but we aren't here for that right now. We need to make our way to Area 10 so that we can fight the next boss. We deal with the first 9 trainers relatively easy, but we have to go back to heal several times. By the way, I hope you don't get tired of hearing me going back to heal, because that happens a lot in this run. We make our way to the 10th guy, and it's a guy who looks so ripped he could probably bench press a mountain. Why does he even have Pokemon? Like, he could just beat up our team by himself. Anyways, he introduces himself as Dockham, and challenges us to a battle. Dockham has a team that consists of Metang, Golem, Camerupt, Marshtomp, and Shadow Entei. This fight is a good time to mention something exclusive to Pokemon Colosseum. Bosses switching up the Pokemon they lead with. In this game, bosses do not have Pokemon that they are set to lead with. They can lead with any 2 of their Pokemon. So if you lose to a boss and come back to them, they may lead with 2 entirely different Pokemon and you might have to adjust your strategy entirely for that. There were times that I would just reset the run just because they led with 2 Pokemon I did not want them to lead with at times. The main thing consistent about it is that the bosses will always use their Shadow Pokemon last. Dockham uses Protect Earthquake, so I lead with Misdreavus and Noctowl so that I can set up Reflect and Confuse Ray without getting hit by Earthquake. I generally try to deal with Metang and Marshtomp so that Croconaw can use Surf for quad damage against Camerupt and Golem. After dealing with them, we get to Entei. Entei one-shots pretty much everyone on our team aside from Croconaw and Sudowoodo, so catching him is all about getting cheeky damage until you get the RNG to catch Entei. It took about 3 attempts, but Dockham was defeated and I caught Entei. After defeating Dockham, he gets angry and instead of beating us up, which he probably could do, he just jumps into the mountains up 100 feet, I don't know. The guy who Dockham had beaten gives us an item called the Time Flute. The Time Flute calls Celebi to purify a Pokemon regardless of their Shadow Meter. In other words, it's a completely worthless item to us that we will never use, and even then, we still can't even sell it. We leave Mount Battle and head to Pyrite. We break into jail, steal a key off a sleeping prisoner, and go to an elevator and take it to a place called the Under. We do a few fetch quests, talk to a few folk, then we see somebody get locked up. Apparently the people here thought they were us. We challenge some Cypher goons and snag Ladian. After beating the goons, we get the item that allows us to fight the next big boss in the run, Venus. Before going any further, I need to mention something about the AI in Pokemon games. Generally, trainers just pick moves at random, however sometimes there are trainers that pick moves based on type advantage. This is called good AI. This mechanic is normally only given to gym leaders, the Elite Four, and important trainers along your way. Dockham and Colosseum had good AI. However, it needs to be mentioned that every trainer in Colosseum after this point has good AI if they have a Shadow Pokemon. Having a lot of trainers take advantage of this mechanic sounds like it could be annoying, and at times it really is, but this also means we can often predict what moves an opponent's Pokemon will use. We are going to start taking advantage of this at later fights in the run. Venus has a team of Steelix, Delcatty, Banette, Vileplume, and Shadow Suicune. Venus' strategy is to constantly use Attract to make your Pokemon staggered since they cannot attack. Due to this, there are a lot of fights I do with her where we lose to just Attract, making us lose a lot of turns. We could probably beat her if we got perfect RNG, but for now, you need such good RNG to beat her that it just seems impossible for our team, so we are going to reevaluate our team for this fight. For starters, I decided to add a Ledian to our team. And I know anyone familiar with Pokemon is going to ask, why add a Ledian of all choices to our team right now? But there's a good reason for this that I'll get into in a second. I go back to Agate Village and do the exploit for Entei and Ledian to get their moves back. This gives Entei Fire Blast and Bite while giving Ledian Safeguard and Supersonic. We can now use Safeguard to stop Venus from using Attract on us. I also give Entei the EXP share because at the end of the run, I'm going to purify him and see how much EXP he could have had throughout the run had he just had the EXP share the whole time. With the exploit finished, we go back to fight Venus again. This time, Ledian throws up a Safeguard right off the bat. From there, this battle becomes a war of attrition. We are constantly doing as much damage as possible every turn. Delcatty is simple enough to take down. Hitmontop just uses Triple Kick to get rid of her. However, from there, Banette just goes down to Bite from Entei, and Steelix takes a lot of damage. However, I did miss a Fire Blast and a Triple Kick on Steelix. From there, the fight is just Sudowoodo and Entei versus Vileplume and Shadow Suicune. Knowing Sudowoodo is going to die, I have Sudowoodo throw a Pokeball hoping to snag Suicune at full health, and have Entei go after Vileplume with a Fire Blast. Out of a stroke of the craziest RNG I have ever gotten in a Pokemon game, I snag Suicune at full health, and then Entei takes on Vileplume quickly after. With this finished, we defeat Venus, and we get 3 rare candies, again, another item we can never use in this run. We go to a PC and withdraw Suicune and go back to Agate Village to do the exploit. Suicune learns Surf, Leer, and the irrelevant move Gust. We return to the Under and chase after Venus. She had a whole night's head start on us since we used the exploit, but she didn't make it very far and we catch up to her pretty quickly. She takes an elevator to get away from us, so we have to take the stairs to follow her. On the stairs, we run into a few trainers and we end up snagging Sneasel, Piloswine, and Gligger. We do fail to snag a Stantler though. I tried for several turns, but Stantler took down both Entei and Suicune, and then proceeded to kill himself in recoil damage. I'm just gonna chalk this up to Stantler being some sleeper powerhouse of the OU metagame in Gen 3 that nobody has truly given a chance. Venus gets away, but in the process she drops a subway key, and we use it to take a train to somewhere. At this somewhere, we see two Cypher goons and chase after them for a minute, but then a huge explosion happens, and it appears that they destroyed our way to get forward. We do find a key, however, but we're just gonna leave for now. We return to Agate Village and get most of our new Shadow Pokemon their moves back, before heading to a mysterious lab in the middle of the desert. Conveniently, the key that we found is a key to this lab, so we can break in no problem. This lab is swarming with Cypher goons. However, for the most part, we have to run back to heal almost after every single fight we do here. While making it through the lab, we snag an Apom, a Murkrow, Fortress, Ariados, and Granbull. However, we knock out Vibrava because it's never going to evolve into a Flygon, so it's just kind of a terrible Pokemon at this point for us. I would like to put emphasis on how important Granbull is. We are not going to use it right now. However, later in the game, it is the key to everything. We get past the plethora of trainers and make our way to the end and meet a guy named Ein. If you were wondering when the difficulty spike would happen in this game, it is this fight. Ein has a team of Lantern, Huntail, Golbat, Altaria, and Shadow Raikou. The biggest problem in this fight for us is Lantern and Huntail. Both of them are decently bulky, and we have no good moves to deal with them. We have no access to Pokemon with electric or grass moves, and the only Pokemon with ground which can deal with Lantern is Piloswine, and Piloswine is weak to Lantern's water moves. The starting Pokemon for this part of the run is extremely important. You do not want Ein to lead with both water Pokemon, as he will use Rain Dance and then start spamming moves like Hydro Pump or Thunder until your team is dead. Unfortunately, even with neutral damage from his team, he still pretty much one-shots every one of our Pokemon, as moves like Hydro Pump and Thunder are very high damage. Like, his Lantern one-shots Fortress, like it's not the defensive terror it is. Even when those two are dealt with, you still need to beat Golbat and Altaria. My plan to deal with them was to use Piloswine since he has Blizzard, but that's much easier said than done. Golbat and Altaria are a whole different can of worms from the water Pokemon. Instead of dealing high damage, they focus on confusion and poison. I decide to lead with Ledian, as Ledian can set up Safeguard, but even with that, and resetting until Ein leads water and a flying Pokemon, I still can't even begin to put a dent in his team. I try so many times, however, every single time I just get walled really badly by Huntail and Lantern. After dozens of attempts, I figured out the strategy to beat Ein. Honestly, I did not even believe it when it worked. As stated at the beginning of the run, a Shadow Pokemon can go into Hyper Mode. While in Hyper Mode, a Pokemon gains nearly 100% crit rates on Shadow Rush. Before returning to fight Ein, I put Suicune and Fortress into Hyper Mode and bring them into the battle already in Hyper Mode. I lead with Ledian and Sneasel. I use Sneasel to use Icy Wind on his Pokemon, as Sneasel can outspeed them and force them back several speed stages, so Fortress and Suicune can outspeed. From there, after their speed gets tanked and Ledian sets up Safeguard, I have Suicune and Fortress use Crit Shadow Rush to deal with the water Pokemon. Still takes several attempts, and it takes several turns to do this strategy even to clear his water Pokemon. But eventually we get there. After his water Pokemon are dealt with, it's just a matter of landing Blizzard with Piloswine without getting poisoned. After dealing with his two Flying-type Pokemon, you just have to catch Raikou, which is a lot easier said than done. I got to Raikou several times, and most of those times, Raikou beat the rest of my team because I was just trying to catch it the whole time. Unfortunately, if you do not have Piloswine alive for the Raikou part of this fight, you will lose, as Raikou is going to spam Thunder, and he is going to ruin your day. Even with this hyper mode strategy, it took several attempts to actually get the run where I finally beat Ein. Eventually, I got a run that was just Piloswine versus Raikou, and I finally get the RNG to catch Raikou and keep the run going. I don't think I put enough emphasis on how many attempts this battle took me. So now I'm going to throw up a quick montage of me losing to Ein repeatedly, as this fight took me days to beat. After defeating Ein, we grab some files and the Earthquake TM. Sadly, we'll never use that, as that seems to be a trend with rewards from boss fights in this run. We leave the lab and hear about a new Colosseum called Railgam Tower, so we go to visit it. At Railgam, we have to fight all of the Cypher admins again. That means we have a rematch with Mirror B, Dockem, Venus, and Ein again. I am not looking forward to that one, sadly. We start with fighting Mirror B, and we lose pretty badly. So I go to Agate Village and do the exploit to get Raikou all his moves back. I go back to face Mirror B again, and he goes down pretty easily this time, as Raikou has Thunder now. Next up, we go to fight Dockem. Dockem uses Protect Earthquake, however he is now using Sunny Day support as well. He uses attacks like Solar Beam and really strong fire attacks. This Dockem fight took several attempts, as I kept getting walled by his Wish Cache. On like my third attempt, Dockem had Claydol and Flygon out. I took down Claydol, and Dockem sent out Wish Cache. From there, Flygon used Earthquake, and it crit his own Wish Cache. So I didn't even really fight Wish Cache that fight, as it went down to his own attack. Honestly, this fight would have been a nightmare had I not gotten the RNG on that Earthquake. I have no Pokemon to realistically deal with Wish Cache, and it is a very bulky Pokemon for us to deal with currently. After Dockem, I decide to try the Ein fight, since you can face the admins in any order you wish. Funnily enough, of all the admin rematches, Ein was the easiest one. He has a team of Rhydon, Manectric, and a whole bunch of Pokemon that get one-shotted by Thunder. We take out Rhydon with Suicune using Surf, and we have Piloswine take out Manectric using Dig. From there, the rest of this fight is just spamming Thunder repeatedly until his team falls, as they are all weak to it. I am so thankful this wasn't a repeat of the original Ein run. It really shows how important good typing is in this run, as his team is at a much higher level than ours, but we deal with him pretty easily. Lastly, we have to fight Venus. Venus uses a pretty similar strategy, so I just use Safeguard strats, and Sneasel is able to slow her team down, and if you're able to tactically switch while still getting in damage, you should be fine on this fight. With that, we have beaten the 4 admin rematches, but we still have a few more Cypher goons to deal with. While fighting these guys, we snag a Sunflora, a Heracross, but we fail to snag a Delibird. We go to Agate Village and pick up the Master Ball real quick. Then, we make our way up the tower to see the guy from the beginning of the game who said we may see him again, surprise, surprise. He introduces himself as Nascor and says that he will be waiting for us at the top. We try to take an elevator to follow him up, and we run into that other guy from the beginning of the game. and he introduces himself as Gonzap and challenges us to a fight. Gonzap's team is Crawdaunt, Shiftry, Hariyama, Pinsir, and Shadow Skarmory. Crawdaunt and Shiftry are a pain to deal with as they both have Aerial Ace. They will take down Heracross in a single hit if they use it. I use Murkrow because he knows Fly, and that's a pretty big deal for 3 of those Pokemon. I also put Heracross into Hyper Mode before starting the fight for the insane crit rate. I have Murkrow take down Shiftry with Fly, and I use Raikou to take down Crawdaunt with Thunder. Aside from that, Heracross makes quick work of the rest of his team while in Hyper Mode. It takes a few attempts, but I finally got the run where I caught Skarmory. With that, we only have the last part of the game, and oh boy, it is a doozy. Now we have to deal with the Gauntlet. Once you take the elevator, you have to fight 4 trainers in a row. Each trainer has a team of a specific type, so it's kinda like an Elite Four for this game. However, each trainer also has a Shadow Pokemon. The first trainer uses normal Pokemon and has a Shadow Meltank. The second trainer has Dark Pokemon and a Shadow Absol. The third trainer has Fire types and a Shadow Houndoom. And the fourth trainer has Grass Pokemon and a Shadow Tropius. You must fight all 4 trainers in a row, and you cannot save or heal in between fights. Initially, I thought this part of the run was impossible itemless. However, there is a way to beat these guys. It requires you to exploit every abusable mechanic in this game, so I'll explain it as we go through each fight. First of all, you need to beat the normal trainer in the Gauntlet without catching Meltank. Then you need to snag Absol and Houndoom. It is very important that Houndoom has Flash Fire, so you may need to reset a few times until it gets the ability. One thing to note is that when a trainer in the Gauntlet gets a Pokemon snag, they replace it with another Pokemon. So you can't just snag all their Shadow Pokemon and come back when they have less Pokemon. The Pokemon I leave are ones that are easier to deal with than the Pokemon that replace them. Once you catch both Pokemon, white out. In Colosseum, you get to keep the Pokemon you snagged if you white out. Now we have a team of these 2, we can set up our team for getting through this Gauntlet. For starters, it's back to Agate Village again to get Houndoom and Absol all their moves back. Also, if you haven't done it yet, Granbull needs all his moves back as well. Also, make sure you grab the Quick Claw at Agate Village. We go to visit the Berry Master and reset until he gives us a Lumberry. The Lumberry is very important as that will cure confusion in the Nascore fight. Next, we put Absol and Granbull both into Hyper Mode. Then we have to organize our team in this order: Absol, Heracross, Suicune, Houndoom, Skarmory, and then Granbull. I gave Skarmory the Quick Claw, but it's not too necessary to reset until it works in these fights. In Fight 1, reset until they lead with Porygon 2 or Zangoose and Shadow Meltank. From there, you have Heracross one-shot Zangoose with Brick Break, or have both Heracross and Absol take down Porygon 2. Meltank is going to try and set up Defense Curl while you do this, so you can use Hyper Mode's crit rate to ignore the defense increases. Next up is the Dark Trainer. You should still begin with Absol and Heracross, but withdraw Heracross for Granbull, as Sneasel will outspeed Heracross and one-shot it with Aerial Ace. From there, take out Sneasel, but try and get Absol knocked out as you don't want him to lead in the next fight. Also, you're going to need to get Granbull knocked out at some point in the Gauntlet as well. After this, we face the Fire Trainer. If Absol was knocked out, you should lead Suicune and Heracross. If they lead with Ninetales, switch into Houndoom and absorb all their fire attacks. If not, they are going to lead with Torkoal and Magcargo. Torkoal doesn't do too much damage to Heracross, and Magcargo just gets outsped by Suicune and one-shotted by Surf. Ninetales will use Dig, so you're going to need to switch in Skarmory so that Dig misses. After that, switch back to Houndoom and it will try to use a fire attack, and Houndoom will absorb it if you have Flash Fire. From there, it's all about tactically switching those 2 Pokemon until Suicune has killed it with Surf. Now, all we have left is the Grass Trainer. Skarmory just spams Air Cutter and deals with everything on his team. The only thing that threatens Skarmory is Cacturne, and Cacturne can only do damage when using Counter. After you do that, you have beaten all 4 trainers and Nascor comes forth to challenge you. We get healed before this, but oh boy, do we have a fight here. Nascor's team is no joke. He has a Gardevoir, Blaziken, Walrein, Dusclops, Xatu, and Shadow Metagross. Beating Nascor with any Pokemon we have currently is simply impossible. So we need a whole new angle. What angle is that, you may ask? Granbull. We need Granbull to use Roar to force out Shadow Metagross, which means I need to explain how Roar works in Gen 3. Roar always goes last in Gen 3, meaning Granbull has to survive a turn. This is actually impossible if Blaziken is out. In addition, we also need to consider that Roar can fail in Gen 3 when used on a Pokemon of a higher level. Now, I don't want to turn this video into a math equation, but just think about it like this. Every level lower you are, Roar is 2% less likely to work. Since Nascor's team is mostly leveled 55 Pokemon, and Granbull is level 43, that's about a 75% chance to even work. Then you still need to get the 1 in 5 chance of forcing out Metagross. Every attempt that fails requires you to do the gauntlet all over again. So in reality, you are sinking about 20 minutes at minimum to just deal with the gauntlet, and that's not even considering how long the Nascor fight will take you. Now, once a blue moon happens on Friday the 13th and all the planets align, you will force out Metagross and catch it. Unfortunately, my footage corrupted for this part, so I can't even show it. However, once you do that, Master Ball Metagross and white out. Then save so that you never have to go through that again. From there, get Metagross its moves back and go into Hyper Mode. And we give the Lumberry to Metagross. From there, repeat the strategy I stated for the gauntlet before, however replace Granbull with Metagross. Also, do not let Metagross faint under any circumstances, as he has to be in Hyper Mode for this. From there, Metagross can one-shot every Pokemon on Nascor's team except Walrein, and Blaziken is on a range where it can be either a 1 or a 2 shot. I also gave Metagross a berry for this fight to avoid confusion, as Dusclops likes to confuse you. Once you deal with Blaziken, none of Nascor's Pokemon can really deal with Metagross except his Alakazam, which he has used to replace Metagross. It has Fire Punch, so Houndoom has to be alive, as Houndoom is the only Pokemon we have that can deal with Alakazam. From there, Houndoom deals with Alakazam, as Alakazam cannot even hurt it. Use Metagross to force the fight down to just Dusclops and Alakazam. Once you get the fight down to that, the only way Nascor can hurt Houndoom is with Shadow Ball, which is not very effective. Houndoom can take his sweet time beating down all his Pokemon. I got the fight to the end with Heracross alive and had him endure for a few turns while Houndoom dished out the last few attacks, and with that, we have defeated Nascor without using a single item in battle. And with that, Colosseum appears to be done. You know, this run took a lot of RNG and way more resets than I had even imagined, but we get to enjoy this nice cutscene. Hey, even the mayor is here to thank us for our work. Wait a second, what's up with him? He just did a flip and now he's all like evil. His name's Evis? Yeah, after you beat Nascor, you have to fight the mayor. His name's Evis, the real leader of Team Cypher. Evis has a team of level 60s, and considering that our strongest Pokemon is a level 50 Metagross, this does not look good. Evis has a Slaking, a Slowking, Salamence, Scizor, Machamp, and a Shadow Tyranitar. Luckily, after you defeat Nascor, you begin from Evis instead of having to do the gauntlet all over again. But it still takes a lot of resetting to defeat this guy. I get very lucky as Scizor uses Swords Dance and Baton Pass. As it appears with Baton Pass, it can force out a Shadow Pokemon prior to being the last Pokemon for bosses. Evis brings out Tyranitar in a very early run, and I take advantage of it and catch Tyranitar, and then proceed to white out. I go to Mount Battle and grind for hours until Tyranitar has all its moves, and I have enough coupons for leftovers. I return with my new team featuring Tyranitar, and this time, Evis has a team featuring Aggron instead of Tyranitar. First off, you need to lead with Houndoom and Metagross, and reset until Evis leads with Scizor and either Machamp or Slowking. All of his other Pokemon outspeed Houndoom, and you need to take out Scizor before it can Baton Pass a Swords Dance. I got a Slowking and Scizor lead from him, so I had Metagross set up an Iron Defense, which is also important, while Houndoom takes out Scizor. After Scizor goes down, Evis sends out Machamp. Next turn, I had Houndoom and Metagross both go after Machamp, but he survived with just a sliver of health. He takes down Houndoom, and I send out Tyranitar, who starts up a Sandstorm. This takes Machamp out. From there, Slacking comes out. Slacking loafs around, and his Slowking skill swaps it, giving Slowking Truant. You're going to want to keep this Slowking in the battle for a while, as that forces him to keep Truant going on for a while. Every turn he loses to Truant, that is a turn that will help you win. Also, it's important to mention Slacking will not attack you on its first turn, as Evis detects for stat changes, and if you have increased defense, he will use Bulk Up. Since we use Iron Defense, Evis will do this. This gives us 2 turns to take out Slacking by ganging up on it with Tyranitar and Metagross. After Slacking goes down, Evis sends out Salamence. I have Metagross take out Slowking, as he would attack this turn, and Evis sends out Aggron. Tyranitar uses Blizzard, but Salamence barely survives. Next turn, Salamence takes out my Tyranitar, and I switch in Skarmory since I am positive Aggron is going to use Earthquake. Metagross takes up Salamence, and Aggron follows up with Earthquake as predicted. Metagross tanks Earthquake, and Skarmory just avoids it. From there, it's just a 2-on-1 against his Aggron. Aggron ends up using Roar to force out my Heracross, which ironically spells his own demise. Heracross outspeeds Aggron and hits it for quad damage with Brick Break, bringing Aggron down, and with that we have defeated Evis and every battle in the main story of Pokemon Colosseum. Everyone we have met along the way shows up to help us arrest Evis, while he tries to escape on a helicopter. Before Evis gets away, it gets shot down by a fireball. We see that it was shot down by a Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh flies over us and goes off into the sunset, and with that, the run comes to an end. Now all that really remains in the run is to purify the Pokemon and see how much EXP we missed out on. We start with Raikou, who gains 22,323 experience points, and gains 3 levels from that. Next up is Piloswine. Piloswine gains 12,706 EXP and gains 1 level. Hitmontop is up next. He gains 18,027 EXP. This raises him 3 levels. Next up is Croconaw, which we used a lot in this run. Croconaw gains 19,366 EXP. He gains 6 levels and evolves into Feraligatr. Next up, Misdreavus. Misdreavus gains 26,413 EXP and gains 9 levels. Makuhita is up to bat next. Makuhita gains 5,819 EXP and he gains 1 level and evolves into Hariyama. Noctowl gains 15,947 EXP and gains 5 levels. Skiploom just gains 7,635 EXP, but Skiploom gains 2 levels and evolves. Next up is Suicune. Suicune gains 69,066 EXP and gains 9 levels. Next up we have Absol. Absol gains 20,115 EXP and gains 2 levels. Houndoom gains 20,741 EXP and gains 2 levels. Skarmory gains 34,066 EXP and gains 3 levels. Heracross gains nearly 40,000 EXP and gets 4 levels. Now we purify Entei, who had the EXP share most of the game. Entei gains 140,496 EXP. Entei gains 16 levels. This would have been so nice for the final boss if Entei had been level 56. Next up, we have Metagross and Tyranitar. These two saw a lot of grinding on Mount Battle. In fact, Tyranitar had the EXP share almost the whole time in Mount Battle. Metagross gains 182,632 EXP. Metagross gains 14 levels. This is insane. That would have been so nice for the Evis fight. Lastly, we have Tyranitar. After grinding for hours on Mount Battle and beating Evis, with the EXP share, Tyranitar gains 385,359 EXP. Tyranitar gains 23 levels to get to level 78. Oh my god, this would have been a godsend had this been available for the final boss. Unfortunately, I'm not going to save that we purified these Pokemon, because I'm probably going to come back to this run at some point. But, for now, I can just think about all the EXP that I missed out on. And that's Pokemon Colosseum with only Shadow Pokemon and no items. It's a run I didn't think would be possible, but honestly, as far as Pokemon challenges go, this has probably been one of my favorite runs I have ever done. It's a run that really forced me to use mechanics and Pokemon to the best of their abilities, even if I had never even considered using them before. Before I had done this run, I had never used a Ledian, or Granbull, or even Houndoom, but all three were very important Pokemon in this run. It also makes me think about Pokemon on a stat basis rather than a level basis. There were several times where I was looking at Pokemon stats, including IVs and Natures, before worrying about their levels. I also enjoyed how every battle was a double battle, which allowed for creating strategy-heavy battles. I also liked how it forced me to capitalize on things I've never capitalized in Pokemon, like tactical switching, or even Hyper Mode. Overall, yes, this challenge is doable, but is it worth doing? Well, if you want a Pokemon challenge that really challenges you and allows for no easy ways out, then this is the challenge for you. It removes the main tactic of most Pokemon challenges, which is to just level up until you can take down the whole game, or taking advantage of some statistical anomaly like the 1 in 256 glitch of Gen 1. There are a lot of things I could still address about Pokemon Colosseum, but for this video, we have finished what we have set out to do. Maybe if there's enough support, I will go back and do the post-game with only Shadow Pokemon, and try to even win the Earth Ribbon for beating Mount Battle. But I am fairly certain this is impossible to do without items. I never thought I would see a Pokemon challenge where I'm allowed to use the 3 legendary dogs, but by the end of it, I removed them from my party because they just aren't viable, but here we are. Now I'm sure anyone that is familiar with this game is going to be wondering this about Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Before doing this run, I made an outline of both games. I felt this game was much harder and made for a better challenge. I may have a challenge for another day, however it would not follow these same rules in Pokemon XD. XD actually has a pretty easy shadow-only run aside from a single boss fight, so if you're interested in seeing that, make sure you subscribe. Aside from that, if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, as I put a lot of time into this. I'd like to take a second to give some special thank yous for this video. Thank you to Susie for helping with the script. Thank you for Jovasvisions for helping with all the art. Thank you to SaltedNeos, the only other person that I'm convinced has done this kind of a run before. Without him, I would not have been able to beat Evis or Railgun Tower. I'm going to link Jonas's Instagram page down below, and also I'm going to link SaltedNeos' YouTube channel down below. If you have a second, definitely check them out. Lastly, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. This is a Towel Guy, and I am signing out.